When I did my Bankai speculation video last week, I left off a certain individual, and that would be Jūshirō Ukitake, the captain of the 13th Division. Honestly, I did expect to talk about him, and I put him on the list with everybody else. It's just that when I went to go think about exactly what his, Zanpaktou ability would be, beyond what we've already seen in his battle with Stark, and I started thinking about Bankai theories, I basically went into more detail with his character than I really necessarily thought of. I mean, for pretty much every other character on that list, like Shinji and Shunsui and Urahara, we at least know more about them than just, like, what their Zanpaktou does, honestly. Like, Urahara, for instance. We might not know exactly what his Bankai can do. We really honestly don't know exactly what the whole, scope of his Benihime Shikai can entail. But we know a lot about the character. He's been in the series. He's been, in my opinion, a main character in the series for, ever since, like, volume 4, volume 5, he first showed up. And, yeah, he's a big deal. So we know a lot about him and his history, especially with Turn Back the Pendulum. But when I started thinking about Ukitake, I was kind of just like thinking maybe something water or lightning based on his Shikai command, but actually we don't know much about him to begin with. Wait a second, what's that thing with Ginjo? I guess he was a good guy, but he might have been a bad guy?
How dare you talk about my captain like that? Of course he was a good guy.
Well, I mean, it was just a theory. It's not like I was going to run with it or anything. I mean, he's probably going to turn out to be a good guy.
Hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves. He might turn out to be the biggest scumbag in the series.
Honestly, this isn't really that much of a battle of good and evil, so I don't even know why you two are here, but, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, really, at the end of the day. I mean, I don't think he's going to go full-blown Aizen, but his motives might be a little bit unclear. That's really all I'm saying.
Aizen? How could you even compare my kind and compassionate captain with Aizen?
Well, we have to wait until Kubo is going to clarify exactly what his character is going to be about, because there's so much we don't know just beyond his Zanpaktou ability.
Oh, he doesn't need to clarify shit. It's obvious he's the mastermind behind everything.
Okay. Would you just shut up? Just shut up, okay? Now, get back inside my head. Oh, hemorrhage. Yeah, that kind of happened. We honestly don't know a lot about this guy. Really, we don't. We know that, he's the captain of the 13th Division. We know more about his Lieutenant Kaien, who is deceased, than we know actually about the guy himself. We know he gave Ichigo the combat pass. We know he has probably tuberculosis, which, I mean, that's basically tuberculosis. We don't know exactly what the disease is, but it's the spitting blood disease. So, when you die and you get to go to the Soul Society, that's great that you can get diseases there. We know when he fought against Stark with Shunsui, we know how, like, his basis Shikai ability, he can, redirect attacks, and then change the, the trajectory and the speed and the overall power and send them back to the opponents. But that's basically it. We didn't really get much more of it until the Fullbringer arc of all things, starring, that son of a bitch right there, Tsukishima, where we had Ginjo basically relaying the information over to Ichigo about exactly what the Soul Society really is. The dark secrets that nobody's ever supposed to know, that they just fuck around with the substitutes, and that's Ukitake's at the head of it. I remember when I first did my Bleach review of this, I think I called it the Mindfuck Level 100. I don't do that running gag anymore, but I freaked out when that happened, because I'm just like, Ukitake's a bad guy, what the, oh my god. And though, after looking at this again, it's easy to say, like, oh, Ginjo was just, uber pissed off at the Soul Society, that's why he made Ukitake out to be a bad guy, it's not necessarily that he is, but then I start thinking, well, we don't know anything about him hardly, so he could be. I mean, I'm not saying, like, he's gonna be, like, the final villain of the series or anything like that, but, his motives might turn around and he might be something that we didn't expect, Before I get into the Zanpaktou, let's just talk about this from what we know about Ukitake in this current arc, okay? So he showed up when the Quincy's first invaded. When the Quincy's first invaded, he was fighting against some individual that we don't know. I thought it was Kangdu at first, but no, he was fighting against Toshiro at this point. It might be one of the unknown Sternritters, because other than maybe Askin Naklevar, the back of this dude's head right here doesn't really ring any bells. Even with Askin, he has more like a gelled back hairstyle, so this is probably even Askin. So it's probably either L or M or N or X or one of the Sternritters that we don't know yet. Yeah, so he fought against that dude. I think we see him in chapter 515 after the fight's over and all the captains were gathering, mourning the loss of Yamamoto. But then after that, he disappears, and he shows back up again in chapter 547 outside of the Seirete, when the Seirete is being washed over by the Vandenreich and create the Vandente. We have Kayone and Sentomaru, who are just like, hey, Ukitake, captain, the freaking Seirete is being, something's going on there. And all we see is Ukitake just chilling out in a tub in front of the Mazo statue from Naruto with the giant flower, and we don't know. We don't see his face. We don't see, like, if he's meditating. Is he dead? Is he asleep? Oh, is he just really sick and, like, in a coma? We don't know. And he hasn't joined the battle since. And, you know, even with Shunsui, I mean, even with Shunsui, we get a little bit of backstory with Yamamoto. When, you know, Yama was, you know, way younger. We had that scene with Shunsui when he was like a little kid. And Yamamoto was telling Shunsui about, you know, his Bankai and how terrible it is and how if he ever uses again, he might die. And then, well, yeah, we saw Ukitake in the fight with, you know, when Yamamoto was fighting Yuha or Royd. But, you know, we didn't get much information there. We got more information on how Shunsui was in Yamamoto's flashback, but not Ukitake. So yeah, in terms of Ukitake, I think what's going to happen is when he shows up again, it's not going to be like, I'm going to show up and I'm just going to, you know, defeat the Quincy's, or I'm like, I'm sorry I was late to the battle, guys. I think there's a reason why he didn't join the battle yet. And it might be for a good reason, too. It might be like, oh, I was off doing something else to try to combat the Quincy's, and now I've arrived on the scene and I'm ready to do something. But I don't think it's going to be anything simple like how Kenpachi showed up and he's like, yeah, let's kick some ass, you know, or how Ichigo showed up and, hey, let's kick some ass. You know, when Ukitake shows back up again, it's going to be something very integral to the plot. Kind of how Yoroichi showed back up all of a sudden, but we found out what she was really doing in the world of the living. It wasn't just like she was sitting on her hands. You know, same thing with Ukitake. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this? You know, there's not really a lot of stuff for me to go off of. So, you know, do you think he's going to, you know, turn out to be like, you know, Aizen 2.0? Do you think that his motives are just maybe a little bit foggy? He might reveal something that we haven't known about the series because he's one of the oldest captains. Or maybe I'm just wrong about everything. He's the nicest captain in the world and he was just, you know, maybe asleep or just ill when, you know, the Yvonne and Tay appeared and he had to get better and now he's going to go and, you know, attack the Quincy's and just fight like every other captain. I don't know. But, you know, talking about his Zanpaktou now for a little bit, the thing that I wanted to do is that his Zanpaktou is interesting to me because the release command for it, I believe, was all waves rise now and become my shield, lightning strike now and become my blade, which would indicate, of course, that his Shikai had the ability to manipulate lightning and water. And a lot of the video games do express this, by the way. But then we get when he fought against Stark, his ability was, you know, an attack goes in one of the swords, and then, you know, through the talismans on the string, they'll change the, you know, the different aspects of the ability and then shoot it right back at the opponent, slightly different so they won't be able to just counter it like they normally would. And some of you might be thinking, like, well, that ability doesn't really have anything to do with the Shikai. I disagree. I think it has something to do with the water aspect of it because, you know, you think about water. What does water do? Well, water, you know, like reflects things, you know, like it reflects things back to you. Kind of how Yagura has that jutsu in Naruto, the water mirror shit, you know? Kind of the same thing, and that's always been kind of a running theme in Bleach, because remember when Byakuya was fighting Renji, they were doing that back and forth, like the monkey that's staring into the lake doesn't know, you know, like tries to grasp the heavens, but he can't. And the idea that water would be his shield would make perfect sense. You know, the water aspect isn't physical water like with Haribel's Zanpaktou, it's the ability just to, you know, shield him, to reflect attacks back at the opponent, like gazing into the water or something. So maybe something like that. In terms of an attack power, that might be more, you know, like just lightning based, like maybe like charges his Zanpaktous with like a lightning power, like that Suzy Rising Kido, like Shuhei used, and attacks his opponent with that. Especially since the only other lightning based Zanpaktou we've had is freaking Chojiro's. Is he still up here? Did I take him down? I took Chojiro down, sorry. Yeah, Chojiro, and, you know, he's dead, of course. I mean, we saw his Bankai being used by Driscoll and in the flashback with Yamamoto, but, you know, doesn't really count because we didn't really get to see him in the actual series use it. So, another lightning-based Zanpaktou would be great, and Ukitake would probably be certainly one to deliver that. But since we hardly know anything about his Shikai, you know, Bankai theories aren't going to be very, you know, intuitive here. Some theories are that, especially since with Shunsui, too, I heard a lot about this, is that since it's a dual-bladed weapon, you know, the Shikai is like the swords have to work in conjunction with each other, but with Bankai, maybe the swords will separate, and he could just manipulate, like, water and lightning with, like, both hands or some shit. Like, it's much more free reign, you know, how the Shikai usually limits you to using attacks in certain different, like, ways and techniques. Like Rukia's, for instance. Rukia has to use ice techniques, well, she used to, as dances in her Shikai, but maybe in her Bankai, she could just use it more freely. That's how that goes. But yeah, so that's just my quick little take on Ukitake and my theories on it. I just want to really just express to you, you know, just when I was thinking about him, I came up blank for a lot of stuff. So here's a couple of fun facts about Jūshirō Ukitake that you didn't know. Fun fact number 1, Ukitake's hair became white during a severe coughing fit when he was way younger. How young, we don't know, but it was most certainly before his academy days, because even in Yamamoto's earliest flashback of him, when Shunsui and Jūshirō were the equivalent of teenagers, I mean, teenagers is a relative term here because they're souls, but, you know, when they were in the Soul Academy, Jūshiro's hair was still, you know, stark white, so that could be, you know, happen when he was a child. Speaking of, Ukitake's original hair color would be black. How do we know? Because his eyebrows are black. Toriko reference, anyone? No? Nobody? Okay, yeah, there's that. There was a former member of the 9th Division, along with Kensei Muguruma's team, you know, back during Turn Back the Pendulum, that greatly resembled Ukitake. I believe he was the 5th seat. I can't remember his exact name. Starts with an E. I think it was like A.G. Shadow or somebody. Whatever, he gets killed by Tozen, and the way he gets killed by Tozen and we see his dead body lying on the ground looks very similar to the way Ukitake looks after he got one-shotted by Wanderweiss. Just maybe a little bit comparison Kubo's throwing out there, because this dude looks very similar to Ukitake. And finally, did you know that Ukitake and Toshiro have kind of a unique relationship? Yeah, because Ukitake is, you know, he views Toshiro as like another captain with white hair. You know, he finds like maybe like a big brother, little brother kind of connection here, and he's always going around and giving Toshiro candy. This is very prevalent in a lot of the Omake segments because Toshiro, you know, gets all this candy, and he's like, because like, I guess Jushiro's like, oh, he's a little kid, so he must like candy, kind of like how he was fighting against Lilynette. And he's like, you know, you're a little girl, you should be going home and fighting and playing with a ball or something right now. So he has a soft spot for the little kids. Or is it all just an act? I'm on to you, Ukitake, you motherfucker. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Yeah, and just have a good day. Also, Rukia is his lieutenant. That lucky bastard.